Shaman going to attack in here. Does Paul have a 1-drop that he wants to flash in with Aether Vial?
I see that he's running 4 Dryad Militants here. He could activate it, and there's one in his hand. You got to figure he's happy to trade this off for one of the pesky creatures.
Maybe? I don't know. I mean, like...
Yeah. Laku.
Okay.
Did it. So David Ochoa testing the waters and finding a really mean militant.
So in response to the Aether Vial trigger, David is going to crack his Marsh Flats.
So this is indicative of an Abrupt Decay?
Either an Abrupt Decay or he's afraid of like a Liliana Arbiter.
Okay, so maybe he's played against this deck before.
I think you're probably right. He's got an Abrupt Decay, although I don't see any in his deck list. So I think he's afraid of...
All right, so he is aware of what's happening here.
Like Liliana Arbiter or...
Yeah, this is not... Paul Rietzl's deck is not a particularly popular one, but it is a deck that gets played.
Temple Garden drawn for Paul to add to his hand of a pair of Path to Exiles and a Loxodon Smiter, along with a second Horizon Canopy.
Now, it's interesting to know if Paul is familiar with David's deck list, as Dave...
I mean,
he's running Liliana, and Paul could get him with it.
I mean, it's a little masked for David here. It looks like David's just playing the junk deck.
You're right, yep. That also has access to Liliana, but it looks like Paul's like, well, I'm gonna start moving things in a forward direction here, though. I have to say, if David Ochoa plays Liliana now, Paul Rietzl's gonna feel dumb.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if you're Paul, you just have to get something on the table, right?
Agreed.
Like, he doesn't have anything for Aether Vial that's going to come down. Like,
oh, he doesn't have any 2s?
No, he's got just 2 Path to Exiles.
Yeah, absolutely then.
That's why I was a little... I found it interesting that Paul really wanted to trade that Dryad Militant off. I mean, like, it seemed to me like he wanted to get some offense down, right? Like, instead of blocking the Deathrite Shaman. David here is going to crack a second Marsh Flats, go find a land, and look in his hand to see what he wants to cast. I think I see a Timely Reinforcements, so he can go down enough in life, or he is down enough in life, to get both halves of it, both gain 6 life and get 3 1/1 tokens.
This deck does not have a problem getting low on life. I played this deck online for a while. It was called Giftedont. And man, this I got to say, I'm really excited to watch David play this deck because it's really difficult to play. There are a lot of choices that you have at every stage of the game.
And you were saying in between the rounds that this is one of the most skill-intensive decks in the format, right?
I think it is, yeah.
So Timely Reinforcements does come down. David Ochoa is going to go up to 19 life, get 3 1/1 Sculpture tokens.
Now, Timely Reinforcements is not normally a main deck card in Modern, but with since you have access to Gifts Ungiven, it's a tutor target that you can use against aggressive decks. And I was mentioning it before, this deck takes a lot of damage from itself, so having access to life gain of that magnitude is really nice, especially since you're almost always going to be at a lower life total than your opponent, whether they're playing control or not. All right, Paul Rietzl activates his Aether Vial and then just doesn't put anything in. Now he's going to tick it up, though.
Up to 3, draws a Dryad Militant off the top. And is in a little bit of a precarious situation here, right? Like, he can't get anything off his Aether Vial. He's going to attack him with this 4/4, put David down to 15. But, I mean, he'll cast that Dryad Militant. It's good against Gifts and some other spells, but 2/1's not going to battle very well against the 1/1 Soldier tokens. He could start drawing cards with Horizon Canopies, though.
Sure.
Let's see what Paul decides to do.
Players who are signed up for the Modern Masters skill event. The seeds for the deck construction and player meeting, as well as the wait.
So he's counting up his lands, trying to figure out what he wants to do.
At 4 o'clock, you will need to be sitting in your seat where you will be replaced by members of the waiting list in the order listed.
All right, you just mentioned it.
If you are on the waiting list, please meet the judges by the land station. They will get you ready to
Yeah, he's going to crack one of those Horizon canopies, draws a card, which seems to be an Ether Vial. He's going to
fairly miserable Ether Vial here, right?
Yeah, I mean, you don't really want Ether Vial on turn 4. I mean, you had one on turn 1. It didn't do him very much.
And that's the downside of Ether Vial, right, is that it doesn't, it's not a threat in and of itself. It enables you to deploy your threats in a very safe and sneaky manner, but unfortunately, it doesn't do anything itself. And, you know, that is a card in your opening hand. And when you're trying to be the aggressor, when you're trying to apply pressure, if one of those cards is often something that cannot apply pressure, it's definitely a downside. So, something to consider for sure.
I mean, he'll save him mana in the end if he can draw creatures, but Paul doesn't have any creatures here. He's stuck with a pair of Path to Exiles.
Yeah,
2 soldiers are going to get in here for David.
13.
He's attacking with the 2 non-actual tokens. Do you think he favors the one with the pretty picture on it?
Yeah.
I think he does too. No blue mana for David Ochoa yet.
He's still kind of hiding the fact what he's playing, right?
Yeah, he really is. I mean, right now, Paul Rietzl probably still thinks he's on junk. And there's a Goyf which still doesn't really change his mind.
Sorcery, creature, land for now?
I think Goyf's a 3/4. Ochoa opting for the old school Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, not the new modern masters. None of that new stuff over here.
That new art's pretty sweet, though.
I like it. I like the frame, though, of the old Tarmogoyf.
It's cool, too. I've got old ones.
Cool.
Can I get a high five? Or? Thank you. All right, there it is. Watery Grave.
Jig is up.
For David Ochoa. Now Paul Rietzl's like, interesting. And again, Paul Rietzl bluffs the active. Just does nothing.
So Paul here is probably going to tick up that Ether Vial to 4, so he can put into play Wiltleaf Liege.
If he draws one?
Yeah, if he draws one. Definitely going to tick up the other Ether Vial to 1, just so he can save some mana.
This is on the stack, this is on the stack.
Puts both triggers on the stack.
Resolve this one.
And we'll tick them both up. 4 and 1. Paul draws for his turn. It's another Dried Milton.
Yeah, another one. I mean, that Loxodon Smiter's nice, but he's kind of drawn the low end of his power level here, I think, overall. No disruption type bears. He's got a couple of paths in hand, I believe, though, and those will be nice to take out that Tarmogoyf or whatever.
Okay, Smiter gets in again.
Whoa.
Or maybe not. Yes, no, yes. Okay, Rietzl gets in and gets double blocked.
So David Ochoa clearly okay.
It's a 2/3 Tarmogoyf, right? So they both die? Oh, no, sorry. It's a 3/4.
3/4, yeah.
So Paul can kill the trade off with the Tarmogoyf here.
Or he can just path something too.
No, path the Goyf.
Path the Goyf.
Okay. It allows David to go get a basic land.
Good old-fashioned play there from Paul Rietzl. A limited type play, right?
Yeah.
Double block, kill your guy.
Even though it's anything but a limited format.
Correct. David Ochoa is certainly aware of the risk that he was taking on by doing that. He probably figures the Goyf is going to get path at some point anyway, and he'll lose a soldier token in this exchange, and it's not a big deal.
Oh, but he's got a path of his own.
Ah.
For the Loxodon Smiter. So he'll get to keep his precious soldier token. And, I mean, yeah, okay. I was going to say those past exiles should be exiled, because of Dryad Militant, and they are. Players shuffling after finding lands from Path to Exile. Now Paul's probably going to pass the turn here.
Yep.
And a turn crack Uprising Canopy, maybe.
Looks like it. There's a Liliana of the Veil for David Ochoa.
High risk play.
I mean, he can just make him sack the Dryad Militant here and take the safe light. Because
Could make a high risk play.
It could. I mean, because we've already seen Loxodon Smiter, and Ochoa is going to be aware of what he's up against here as well. And doesn't Wilt Leaf Liege also have that ability? So he's got to be careful and just start using Liliana the Veils. Yeah, he's just going to make him potentially sacrifice the Dryad Militant. We got to remember that Paul does have the Aether Vials up, but. All right, so it looks like Paul's going to start things off by cracking Canopy to draw a card. He can vial in,
draws a Ghost Quarter
for him. He can vial in that other Dryad Militant. This is not particularly, and he says activate and then does nothing again. We'll have to ask him after why if he's just doing that for fun, or if maybe it's to remind him of something, or.
Okay, so the second Aether Vial goes up to 2 counters.
Why?
And Paul draws for his turn. It's another Path to Exile, not a creature.
You got Path.
Paul's sitting already at 10.
Rashad's eating pumpkin seeds and not up to speed on what's going on. Rashad's asking me questions. Yeah, pumpkin seeds are good. We did learn that out of this lesson here. Let's see what Paul Rietzl's up to here.
He drew a second Path to Exile. I mean, like I said, sitting at 10, with that Liliana active. Okay, so Liliana bites at us, but it's hard for him to be the aggressor here, and it's not like he wants to spend both those Path to Exiles on soldier tokens, right?
Oh.
He really needs one of his big creatures, pretty much any of them, anything but Dryad Militants.
All right, so Watery Grave's going to bite it, and I don't know if David Ochoa is running
a basic island. Nope.
An island. Yeah, I don't think he is. The version that I ran when this was came out didn't have islands in it. Yeah, he's going to have to get a forest. So that does effectively cut him off from blue for the time being, though Paul Rietzl probably has figured out what he's up against and knows that Ochoa probably would have played Gifts if he had it in his hand already.
David draws for the turn. A Lesh Norn.
Okay. He's 2 lands away from casting it, and he has a land drop available this turn if he's got lands in his hand. It's really good versus Paul.
It's pretty good versus Paul.
It's really good versus Paul. Kills a lot of his creatures.
Yeah,
the bears.
okay.
Yeah, okay. You're there? You're with me?
That's good. I was thinking like the Smiter and Wilt Leaf Liege.
Staff is going to start coming around and collecting payment for that event. So if you are seated, please have your money out and ready to pay.
Ocho takes 2, or deals 2 to Rietzl, dropping him down to 8. Holding a guy back. Rietzl again fakes out with the Aether Vials. Not doing anything. And Rietzl gonna, look at the die, take it up to 3. Aether Vial on 4 and 3. And draws a forest, another land.
Not great draw steps here for Paul Rietzl. He has been drawing just
He's pretty much drawn
the
nothing.
worst options, yeah.
Is in this entire game, besides Path to Exiles and Dryad Militants.
And it looks like Ochoa is in full battle mode here, sending in with 3 soldier tokens. And so far, these have been set up to go the distance here for David Ochoa. He finds a Tarmogoyf to sit back on defense for a turn while it's summoning sick as well, and represent lethal damage coming back the other way.
Yeah, but we know that Rietzl has Path to Exile. He's going to use on the Tarmogoyf.
Correct. So I believe there's a Plains left. There it is. That's it for David Ochoa. That next Path to Exile is going to be the best removal spell ever for Paul Rietzl.
Or the Ghost Quarter in play. And Paul did draw another creature in the form of Leonin Arbiter.
Okay, so he's starting to get there. Still not a great draw.
No. Rietzl deals 2 to Ochoa. Plays Lean and Arbiter.
Yeah.
Passes it back.
Leon and Arbiter's an interesting card.
Yeah, it's 1 and a white for a 2/2 from Scars of Mirrodin.
Really interesting card to read, that Leon and Arbiter.
Which says if
It says
players can't search libraries.
Yeah, that's the starting point right there. Is it?
Any player may ignore that ability if they pay 2.
That ignores the ability completely until the end of turn, so you can pay 2 and then kind of do multiple things.
Looks like David has an oust. Is going to use on the Dryad Militant because he has a Lingering Souls that he wants to cast in flashback.
Ah, okay. More bad news for Paul Rietzl, though. He's
Yeah.
going to be drawing that Dryad Militant in a couple of turns. Again, just not the kind of thing he wants to be hitting right here.
Yep, and Lingering Souls, flash it back. Pretty much puts you dead on board the following turn.
It's interesting because this game has played out in kind of a weird way, right? Like David Ochoa playing that, making 3 tokens early in the game didn't seem to be like a big board affecting, super important play, and yet he now has Paul down to pretty low life total thanks to those 3 tokens.
He decided not to swing in this turn. I guess he's 1 short if he swings in and then attacks with everything the following turn. Either way, 2-turn clock for David Ochoa.
Is Paul Rietzl at 8 still? Or is he at 5?
He was at 5 and he gained 3 from oust.
From oust, okay.
Arbiter is going to get in there. Kusali Pride Mage adds to the fray.
Yeah, Exalted trigger here, so it's a 3/3, and it's just going to get chumped by Ochoa.
I mean, Ochoa's in a pretty good position here, right? Path of Exile going to take out one of the spirits. David has no more lands, basic lands in his deck. Can't search anything out.
It's a critical path there, as 4 spirits can kill Paul in 2 turns, and 3 spirits it's going to take 3 turns to do it. So he bought himself a draw step, especially knowing that one of your draws is essentially a blank.
Yeah.
Here's an Unburial Rites for David Ochoa. What is he going to get? A Goy? What did he discard?
Deathrite Shaman from the
Deathrite
beginning
Shaman,
of the game.
Okay. Again, just more reach. That does actually make it a 1-turn clock now.
Yep.
3 spirits is going to drop Paul down to 2. Paul knows what he's drawing, and then an activation on that Deathrite Shaman would finish things off.
So it looks like David's locked up this game.
Players in the standard for a round 3 set tournament, preparing for round 2 are being posted on the
Or not.
Although an oust for David puts Paul back up to 8.
Also, you are signed up for the Modern Master Seal.
But also means that his next 2 draw steps are known to David Ochoa.
Right, but I mean, now Paul can pay 2, use the ghost.
Yeah, he's going to go
Quarter.
quarter himself.
To make sure that he draws something fresh.
Yeah.
He really wants like a Wiltley Fleet Chair or a Smiter.
So he gets a forest, which is fine, but really it's this shuffle that was the key behind this whole interaction.
Let's see what he gets off the top.
I wonder what he even can get, to be honest. David Ochoa rooting for him to draw a Dryad Militant. Here's an attack with the Leonin Arbiter.
10.
And Ochoa takes that.
And okay, land, or sorry, a mana off of Deathrite Shaman and a Leshnorn for David Ochoa, and that will.
These are all lethal.
Yep, that'll do it. David Ochoa wins the first game here of round 5 of Grand Prix Kansas City against Paul Rietzl.
And that was a long and weird game, but that's how these Gifts Rights decks play out. You can get a look at some of the key cards: Lingering Souls, Raven's Crime combos well with Life from the Loam if he's running that, and Gifts Ungiven is the key card. I don't know if Ochoa is running Life from the Loam though.
Does not look like it.
Yeah, that is an option that you can do. He's up to 4 oust in the main there. That's interesting. Yeah. You can rip apart your opponent's hand pretty quickly. It uses powerful cards, just outright powerful cards like Deathrite Shaman and such to handle the early game. It's got card advantage engine in Dark Confidant, and it has the ability to tutor/draw for the pieces that you want for the given matchup with Gifts Ungiven. It's a really powerful deck. The Gifts Ungiven can go get multiple different combos or just 4 value cards so that you can make sure that you get ahead using Gifts Ungiven depending on what kind of matchup you're facing.
There's currently 27
Yeah.
minutes left.
It's also particularly high variance.
I mean, the Dark Confidant part, right?
Yes, because it's running Dark Confidant, cards like Gifts Ungiven. He's got 4 of those. He's also got an Elishnorn in the main, so and Elishnorn is for sure going to be staying this time because it's really, really good against Paul Rietzl. He can go get a Worm Coil engine here.
Terastodon. Probably going to board that one out. Maybe not.
Wow, he's got a Terastodon main.
Yep.
That costs even more than Elishnorn, right? It's 8.
Hit me.
Yeah, one time. So that could get pretty interesting. Some interesting one-ofs as well in the deck. There's a Maelstrom Pulse, a Timely Reinforcements. There's a Singleton Snapcaster Mage, a 1 Lingering Souls. You know, so these are all things that he can tutor up. There's one Path to Exile where he can go get, they call them gifts packages, you know, groups of 4 cards or sometimes 2 cards that you go get with Gifts Ungiven that basically leave it so that you're always going to get one version of what it is that you want and make it so that your opponent basically has no choice but to give you what it is that you're looking for, whether it's like life gain or stabilization, value, or a combo piece. Because one of the things about Gifts Ungiven that kind of has become very popular of late is the fact that you can just search for 2 cards. You don't have to go for the full 4. And if you do just search for 2, your opponent is forced to choose those 2 cards to go into your graveyard. And if those 2 cards happen to be, say, Elishnorn and Gifts and Unburial Rights, then you've got the ability to flash back Unburial Rights and get that Elishnorn the next turn. And it's really nice too because since Gifts is an instant, you can do it on their end step. And if they can't interact with you, especially if they're just like a heavy creature-based deck, you can untap Unburial Rights, and you can get them.
Yep. Players shuffling up for game 2 here. Who do you think's favored in this matchup?
That's really tough. We didn't get to see a lot of Paul's deck there. His deck does have a lot of great ways to help disrupt what David Ochoa is doing in the main deck, and then he can bring in things out of the side that help a lot as well. I see that he's got a Relic of Progenitus and a couple of Rest in Peace. Those can go a long way to battling what David Ochoa is doing with his graveyard shenanigans. Gaddock Teague, really quite nice as well.
Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
he can go up to 3 Aven Mind Sensors post board, which is really quite nice again against David Ochoa. The Mind Sensors working well with his heavy fetch land mana base are working well to combat his heavy fetch land mana base, and also Gifts Ungiven, things like that to prevent.
Oh, well, I want to take my 3 minutes.
To prevent David from comboing off. I think,
That sounds arbitrary, right? It's
generally speaking, I think David Ochoa's deck is more powerful and more flexible than Paul Rietzl's deck. But I'm going to give the edge to Paul here in game 2 just because I think his draw was particularly poor, and post-board he's got some nice answers. I think he's going to be able to adjust the deck nicely to combat what David Ochoa is doing.
I mean, as long as he doesn't get as terrible of a draw as he did first game, where he basically just drew Path to Exile, Dried Militant lands, like... Yeah.
That's not going to get it done.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think he can... Do you think he... I'm curious to see if he takes out the Aether Vials. David Ochoa not running counter magic, so he doesn't get that aspect of it. He still does get the instant speed surprise factor, which is nice, but I don't know... you know, if it's worth keeping them in. What would you do, Ben?
I think I'd probably just still leave the ether vials in, right? Like,
Are they like a critical piece to the deck and how it
I mean,
works?
I don't know if they're necessarily a critical piece to the deck, but like if you have them in your main deck, doesn't seem like a card you really wanna board out, right?
Okay.
Like,
Yeah, that makes sense.
allows
He's
you to
got one of
accelerate
his
a little
opener
bit
here
and then
too.
like not play too many lands, and yeah, looks like he's gonna cast on turn 1 here.
And there it is. So this could definitely set things up for a quick start from Paul Rietzl.
He does have creatures now. He's got Dried Militant and a Thalia.
Oh, man. Thalia too? Jeez. How many of those is he running? 4 in the main. Yeah, that's also a great card against David Ochoa.
So yeah,
I
Thalia
didn't
comes
even
down.
see that in his list because it was in the main. And yeah, that's just another great of those disruption bears that we were talking about. David Ochoa leading off with what a sweet land, right? Creeping
Yeah.
Tar Pit, such a great card. Another reason why I love Modern. It slots well into the Modern card pool.
Well, Ochoa's going to take 2 here and cast Oust on that Thalia. It looks like, yep, Oust. In response, Paul is going to play Dried Militant to get the Oust exiled for any future Tarmogoyfs or Snapcaster Mage shenanigans.
Oust is not a card that you see very often in Modern or really in any format.
It was popular for a short while in
Yeah.
Standard.
It was. But it has, I mean, the problem with it is that they get to draw it again, and there's so many creatures that have enter the battlefield effects that are favorable for their opponent, that sometimes they're just like, sure,
Yeah.
like I'll just replay it. I get 2 more life off Kitchen Finks or whatever it is. But
It's quite good against mana creatures.
yes, and it does certainly buy David a lot of time, which is really what he wants.
Yeah.
All right.
So Paul is going to attack in with his Dried Militant and cast Loxodon Smiter on his turn and pass it back to David.
Lots of lands for David Ochoa. Paul Rietzl with 2 cards left in hand and Dark Confidant for the Ocho, along with a second Creeping Tar Pit. No activation on the Aether Vial for the turn for Paul, but he does have to decide if he wants to tick it up a notch. He does not. Did he draw? Was that the same? I can't remember what turn that happened. Wasn't it just last turn that Thalia got ousted?
Yeah, Oust is.
Because I think he just drew a Thalia.
Oust is second from the top.
Thalia is?
Yeah, so it just 1 turn, right?
So he's going to draw another one next turn. Is that what you're telling me here?
Yes.
By the way, David Ochoa just drew another oust as well. So these Thalias could be.
No, that is the Thalia that was.
That
put.
was the Thalia.
Yeah.
Okay. So Thalia is on the table again. And the Loxodon Smiter is going to get ousted this turn. So David Ochoa just desperately trying to cling on to the board state that he's up against here. He doesn't want to take 6 next turn. Though if Paul Rietzl wants to activate that Stirring Wildwood, he could get in for 5. And David Ochoa continuing to hit his land drops. Again,
Yeah.
being essentially a 4-color deck here.
Well, I mean,
David
David's in kind of
Ochoa's
trouble
mana
here,
is
right?
kind
Like,
of sketchy. Yep.
sitting on 9 life, facing down Thalia, storing Wildwood, like, does have a Tarmogoyf. And
It's a 3/4.
Yep.
Okay. That's a pretty decent turn there for Ochoa, who's already down to 9 life, primarily based off of his lands. He's taking a little bit of creature damage, but pretty rough.
So Wiltleaf Liege drawn for Paul, which he could cast, or wait a turn if he wanted to.
Here's a Gavany Township as well. That could affect the state of the game later. If he can get a few township activations, even something like Elishnorn won't kill all of his guys.
Yeah, so Paul here is waiting on casting that Wiltleaf Liege until Aether Vial has 4 counters on it, at the end of his turn, he can activate Gavany Township, untap, play Wiltly Fleege, and then activate Gavany Township again, which will make his Thalia very, very big.
All right, and there's a Glenalendra Archmage for David Ochoa. And we see Paul Rietzl activate his Township. During his upkeep, Aether Vial is going to tick up one to the 4, and there's a Loxodon Smiter that we talked about earlier. So right now, Paul Rietzl in a pretty good spot is that Glenalendra Archmage not really going to be countering anything anytime soon. It can block a couple times.
Yeah.
But Paul Rietzl's at 26 thanks to those 2 outs, so it's not like he's under any pressure in the air at all. And here comes the
Thalia.
3-2 first striking Thalia.
David's got to know something's up.
I mean, he sees that there's the Gavany Township, so Paul can be representing that as far as on the table goes, but he's actually got a different way to give it a slightly bigger.
Yeah.
And it's a Wiltly Fleege.
It doesn't look like David blocked there. So 4 damage, drops David to 5 life.
Things are looking very good for Paul as he's going to be able to put a 6/6 Loxodon Smiter.
Yep.
Woo! That's big.
Another oust
Another
drawn.
oust. All the ousts for the Ocho.
And so oust will take out Thalia, it looks like.
29.
And there's
Dark Confidant
good
playing
old
with
Bob.
fire.
Nothing like when you're sitting at 5 life and you play a Dark Confidant. He doesn't have a choice, but there are copies of cards in his deck that can just kill him here. There's for sure Elesh Norn is still in the deck, and Imperial Rights is still going to be in the deck as well. Both of those kill him on the spot, and then he's got a number of 4s that can kill him as well. 3s are less problematic, but still.
I mean, also
he's got to find ways. Go ahead.
If Paul just like doesn't attack here, then there's a good chance that David's just going to chump with Dark Confidant, right?
That's true. He could also double block or triple block, as it were.
Triple block, okay.
Now, Paul can activate that Township and make it a 7 power. It's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's taking 7 toughness, is what I meant. It's taking 7 either way, though. So he's got to order the blockers. Now, remember, Paul has to put these in order, and he has to do at least lethal to each in order, but he can do more than lethal if he wants. If he wants to leave that Dark Confidant alive, he can just do all the damage to, say, the Glenalendra or the other creatures, whatever he put in front. But he decided not to. He's like, nah, we're going to get that thing out of here, which is usually the safe play.
Draws that Leonin Arbiter and plays it, and is going to Ghost Quarter the Creeping Tar Pit,
You
one
mean
of the 2.
Strip Mine?
Yep.
Yeah. He does it while David Ochoa does not have the mana to pay for Leonin Arbiter, so he's just going to 1-for-1 with lands there. And turns out Strip Mine's still a pretty good card, even at this late stage of the game.
Oust again, putting Will Fleege.
This is why
Second
that
from the
Dark
top.
Confidant was so important, is that David Ochoa has now ousted, 3 times this game?
Yeah.
And each one of those are just cards out of his hand. You know, he needs to replenish the cards in his hand as quickly as he can, and that's what that, yeah, but he's just dead anyway. That's what a Dark Confidant was going to do. So it looks like we are going to go to a game 3 in this kind of quirky matchup. David Ochoa playing Giftedont, or, you know, Gift Rights, versus Paul Rietzl and his green-white disruption deck, disruption creatures deck.
Yep, and Paul looking to see if he wants to re-sideboard here. Same with David. I saw that Paul did bring in Rest in Pieces against David's deck and is considering taking them out. Doesn't look like he will. Instead, is going to take out Smiters. Probably he thinks that the Lilianas were removed from David's deck.
Okay. Yeah, Smiter against Lingering Souls and Timely Reinforcement gets a little bit worse.
Yeah.
It's not like it has a clear path to just get in there.
So upcoming webcasts include Grand Prix Rimini, July 27th, July 28th. The following week, we have the Week of Magic. World Championships from July 31st to August 4th. World Magic Cup from August 2nd to August 4th. Going to be an awesome week of Magic. You're going to be there, right? In Amsterdam? Marshall says yes. After that, 1 week after that, we've got Grand Prix Warsaw Standard Tournament, August 10th to 11th. And later in August, we've got the Magic Online Community Cup. Marshall, you were a Community Cup champion?
I still am.
Okay.
I mean, it was a few years ago now, but yeah.
It was somebody I was talking to who was, I thought that they won, and then it turned out that they had lost and got really mad at me. Was that Conley?
Was it Conley?
Yeah, it was Conley.
It was definitely Conley.
He thought I was trolling him. I was not trolling him. I
Yeah,
thought
he gets a lot of it. We waste no opportunity to tease him about being the first sort of team captain of the Community Cup to have lost. But great event. We're going to be broadcasting that from PAX Prime.
Awesome. Same weekend, there's going to be Grand Prix Prague. And after that, the weekend after that, or a month after that rather, there's Grand Prix Oklahoma City. Taros Limited, it's got to be an exciting format.
Yep.
And then shortly after that, Pro Tour Taros, that's in Dublin.
Theros is in Dublin, that's right. And then we have Grand Prix Louisville shortly after that, just the next weekend. And that's going to be standard, kind of the default favorite format for most Magic players, or at least from what we know of. Yeah, it's going to be good stuff.
That's going to be with the new set.
Right, that's true. Worlds Week is going to be insane. That is going to be in Amsterdam at the end of the month.
Am I going to be working that week? Not a lot of work's going to get done.
I mean, I hope you have some form of streaming on your work computer, because you're not going to want to miss that stuff, man.
Knowing where I'm going to work.
Yes, yeah. Good point. Just beta testing, guys.
Okay, so players are shuffled up and drawing their opening hands for Game 3 here. Round 5 of Grand Prix Kansas City.
Still like Paul Rietzl's chances here. The combination of applying some amount of pressure with David Ochoa's mana against David Ochoa's painful mana base with the disruption that he has available as well.
Another turn 1 Ether Vial for Paul Rietzl.
Yeah. Again, allowing him to deploy threats in a pretty sweet way. I mean, for example, if he gets a couple of counters on it, you can wait till your opponent cracks a fetch land and then throw in a Leonin Arbiter or whatever, and they've got to pay to. They weren't expecting to have to pay to go get that land.
So you're shuffling on your untap.
Kind of like a modern version of a Stifle.
Yeah, a 2/2 Stifle.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes two cards to do it, unfortunately, but get a look at Aether Vial there. That's the special artwork for it, but the original is the one that Paul's using there. All right, turn 2 Dark Confidant for David Ochoa. So he now has, Path of Exile off the top for Paul Rietzl. I think he'll take that. Now, does he use it?
Could use the Dismember. Does look like he's going to use the Dismember.
Yep.
He'd rather wait to use the Path of Exile when he's a Leonin Arbiter in play.
That's right. I like that.
No third land for David.
Wow.
Rietzl's going to tick the Ether Vial up to 2.
Sort of feast and famine for Paul Rietzl is going to be a great end game for him. Currently doesn't have anything to hook it up to. But there's the sword, and all of a sudden things are looking great. David Ochoa, a lot of his live draws here are fetch lands, and if he were to draw one, it's going to get Leonin Arbitered right out of this thing. He didn't draw one, he drew a Tarmogoyf, and he's got a whole grip full of awesome stuff. He doesn't play anything, though.
Okay. Well, Leonin Arbiter comes down.
This is kind of sketchy business here for Paul Rietzl, though, because if he equips up that sword, he could be playing into David Ochoa's game plan by letting him discard something.
Sure.
That said, it's probably still just worth it.
Yeah. So, interesting that if I were Paul here, maybe in response to Ether Vial getting ticked up, I would have Ether Vialed into Leonin Arbiter. But
so you still get the counter on there, but you also get to, is there a second Arbiter?
yeah, he has a second Arbiter in his hand. So The players are asking the judges what happens with Path to Exile and Lean into Arbiter. Does Paul get to search? I believe he does, right? Because the card isn't in play when the search effect happens, right? It says Exile.
Which card isn't in play?
Lean into Arbiter.
Oh, because it's been exiled?
Yeah.
I see. So this is a question on the order on which things are actually resolved by the game.
Yep.
Do you want to just ask Jeff?
Players are talking to the judges, trying to come up with a straight answer.
I'm pretty sure you can search.
I mean, I think that
The creature's gone, you know what I mean? Yeah.
he does get to go get a land, right?
He just wants to ask about. Well, I don't know.
Because the Path to Exile reads, in order, exile target creature, then its controller may search its library for a basic land card.
So he's asking about Path to Exile on Leon and Arbiter.
Okay.
Whether or not Paul gets a
Hold on. We're
You're having his Liliana and
getting a
this
judge
storm
ruling.
chat.
No one's responded. Stacks up, yeah.
Oh, so this is resolving.
It's going to resolve.
So the question is whether you can
whether
search.
he can search with the Path to Exile.
You can, because that'll be gone when you do the search.
Right. Okay. That's what we thought. Just want to make sure.
Right. It was like you said, the judge confirmed that it will be gone when that part of the spell is happening.
9 minutes from now.
And the judge reminds them that they're getting to be up against the time here. There's 4.5 minutes left in the round, but they've got about 9 minutes thanks to the time extension from being in the feature match area. So Paul Rietzl does get to get a basic land off of Path, which is going to, I mean, everything helps here. And another Leon and Arbiter, the one that you mentioned, he's just going to hard cast. Now this does, the way that Paul's played this does leave him with the ability here to vial in a 3-drop. Do we know if he has one?
He doesn't have one.
Okay. All right, there's a Dark Confidant for David Ochoa. He's also got that Tarmogoyf, and I see an Oust in his hand. He's just going to run out the Dark Confidant now. Activation, but...
Oh, he does.
Oh, he does. He's got an even mind
I
sensor.
did not see that mind sensor.
All right.
I guess I must have thought it was a Horizon Canopy.
Now, either way, here's a Path to Exile for Paul Rietzl that's going to take down Dark Confidant, also prevent David Ochoa from being able to search. All right, looks like he might crack this Horizon Canopy first, but even then, the Dark Confidant cannot block either.
And Paul drew Ghost Quarter. So you can strip mine away one of David's lands. Boom. See a Temple Garden. See a Dark Confidant.
And this has got to be miserable if you're a David Ochoa fan at this point.
Attack you for 6. Untap all my lands.
Yes. You discard a card.
11 trigger the sword piece of hammer.
It's going to be...
And play a second Leonin Arbor.
And the second Leonin Arbor at this point is just an attacker. All right, here's a Tarmogoyf probably for David Ochoa.
But pro green from the sword means that...
Yeah, it'll prevent that second Arbiter from attacking and nothing else.
Is the 3/4?
Tarmogoyf looks to be a 3/4 here.
Okay, so Paul's going to get in for 6.
Yeah.
Drop David down to 5.
2-turn clock.
6 trigger the...
I don't know if David Ochoa has outs here, but we're going to find out very quickly. There's a Fulminator Mage hitting the bin. Oh, jeez. And a Thalia. This is exactly what Paul Rietzl's deck is trying to do. You know, David Ochoa missed a bunch of land drops, which really helped highlight how good Paul's deck is in these situations. But even then, it would have been very disruptive, as Paul Rietzl does defeat the Ocho to improve to 5-0 here from Grand Prix Kansas City.